We're now going to do movement observation on 4 different types of salsa dance, 4 different styles of salsa. This is using the EDIC approach. We're taking the broad view of the dance from the outside. This way we can kind of understand what salsa is and how we define the genre. And importantly, we can see how salsa differs in a couple places around the world. So, movement observation is the tool that we use to start understanding a dance. These skills are really important and useful for anthropologists, but also they're important for a lot of other people who work in the dance world. So I like to think of this slide as the why you should care slide, because even if you don't become an anthropologist, learning the skills of how to isolate, identify, and analyze the elements of dance is super useful. So choreographers use this, they use a form of this when they're building dances. And maybe some of you have already taken the choreo classes at UW, so you sort of start to see time, space, shape in building a dance. Dance teachers use this process to break down complex patterns for their students. And people who work in dance science use this process to isolate movements so they can understand patterns of cause and effect in the body. So today we're all playing the role of anthropologists, and we're going to use movement observation in order to help us better understand the people dancing and their culture. Okay, so we're going to do a quick review of the reading. So as we're watching these clips today, we're going to start with scratch notes. And that's where you're watching the dance, but you're writing as fast as you can, and you're taking as many notes as you can on what stands out for you. The scratch notes, they don't have to be pretty, they don't have to be nice, it's just your shorthand, whatever works for you. And then after the clip is played, then we take those notes and we enter them into these categories. So we talk about the setting, which would be the who, the what, the where, the why. We talk about the timing. What's the rhythm like? Does it flow? Is it sharp? Does it change? And we also think about how the rhythm affects you as an observer. Then we put our notes into the shape category. What positions are their bodies making? What shapes do you see? Do you see any gestures or postures that are kind of characteristic of this style? Then we talk about space. So this is how the space or the environment shapes the movements and how the movement shapes the space. And we're also looking at the spatial relationship between people and if there are specific roles for specific spaces. Then we look at the focus. So where are people looking, both the performers and observers? Are they dancing for an audience? Do they have an inward focus or an outward focus? And as an observer, what draws your eye? What catches your focus? And then the last thing we do is we start making connections. So reflecting on what we've seen, we start considering the social significance of this dance style. And we start to ask what meanings might lie within this movement knowledge. And really what we're doing is starting to form questions that you want to learn more about in an interview. Here in the connections box, we make no assumptions. We're only forming questions to move forward on. Okay. So today we're doing digital movement observation, which is different from being there in person. So we just have to talk about the pros and cons real fast. So we are limited by the scope of the camera, right? We can't see anywhere that the little lens doesn't look at. So we can't see what's going on behind the camera. We can't see what's going around, like what's going on around the corner of that building over there. And we're also limited by the duration of the video. Today we're only watching 2-minute clips. So we really don't get a sense of the full event. And because of that, we are going to miss out on some of the larger cultural significance. Because you're not there in person, you don't get to use all of your senses. You don't get to smell what's going on. You don't get to hear all of the different conversations. So those are our limits. The benefits are obviously we get to stop and rewind and replay as much as we want. If you're there in person, all you have are your scratch notes, right? And things go by fast. But because this is recorded, we can watch it as much as we want, which means that it makes the dance a little bit more timeless. As long as we have access to the video and the technology is good, it's a timeless dance. And also, because we can rewatch and replay it so easily and so quickly, it makes this method really useful for comparisons. So today we're going to compare LA street style, which is what we learned, Cuban, Puerto Rican, and Colombian salsa. And we're going to do it within like 30 minutes. And there's no way you could do that in real life. You'd have to like teleport from place to place. So here's what you're going to see today. You have to keep in mind that I'm curating the videos for you. And of course, that's biased. But what I'm trying to do is find the most average video of each of these styles. But it's curated for sure. So you're going to see social dance, which means we're not looking for competitions or formal performances with a stage and an audience. We're seeing people out dancing socially. Generally, their dancing will be improvised, and you're going to see skilled but not professional dancers. So that first block in our movement observation, the setting block, I've tried to make the setting pretty much the same across the videos. So we're going to kind of, for now, ignore the setting in favor of a few other things. Okay, so we're going to watch this about 2 minutes of this clip. If you want to, you're welcome to write scratch notes as you watch. It's not required this time. Most importantly, I want you to watch for these specific things on the left. So keep your eye out for how they interact with the space, how they interact with each other, how they interact with the rhythm of the music. And also just try to keep your eye out for any repeated movements and gestures. What are they doing a lot of? Okay, make sure your sound is turned up. And then Margaret, let me know let me know in the chat if there's any issues, if you guys can't see this or hear this. Here we go.
Llorarás y llorarás sin nadie que te consuele, así te darás de cuenta que si te engañan duele. Y después vendrás a mí pidiéndome perdón, pero ya mi corazón no se acuerda más de ti. Llorarás y llorarás sin nadie que te consuele, así te darás de cuenta que si te engañan duele.
Okay, so we're going to pause there. Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Were you able to see and hear that? Okay. Okay, good. All right, so let's talk about what we saw. I'm going to show you, these are my scratch notes. You don't have to read this. I know it's a lot of text. I just wanted to show you that it's kind of chicken scratch. And I use my own shorthand for things that I see, things that I saw multiple times. So those are my notes. And then at the bottom, I draw 2 lines. And after the video is over, I write what stood out to me. So I saw tons of CBL. That's my shorthand for crossbody lead. And that's a step in which they're changing places with each other. So they were changing places a ton. There was a ton of spins, and there was also lots of improvisation, it looked like, for both the leader and the follower. And I also wrote slot is important. We're going to talk about that a little more as we go into our different categories. So now we take these scratch notes and let's put them into our boxes. The setting, as I said, we're going to kind of ignore the setting because generally I tried to find similar ages, similar settings. Here we see a crowded dance floor that's actually surprisingly well organized. We don't really see a ton of people bumping into each other. We've got a male lead and a female follower. They're wearing casual or club attire. She's wearing heels and he's wearing Tom's shoes. It looks like they're Tom's shoes, which is quite common for men to wear in salsa dance because you can spin easier. So thinking about time, they're dancing on the quick, quick, slow, which is exactly the step that you guys learned. It's that same rhythm. And in the salsa community, when you start dancing with someone, they'll often say, do you break on one or do you break on two? And that just means on what count do you initiate the step? So here they're breaking on count one, and we can really see a heavy downbeat on count one. So they're dancing quick, quick, slow, quick, quick, slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we can see that both the leader and the follower are breaking that rhythm to improvise separately. As far as shapes, like I said, we can see them passing each other frequently. The woman often has an arm up over her head. The man often rests a hand on his diaphragm. We see lots of body rolls and isolations that give kind of a sexy or showy feel. There's lots of turns, and they're constantly stretching apart and then releasing past each other to switch places. For use of the space, we really see them dancing in a slot. And a slot just means that they're organizing their movement in a linear pattern. So when they're switching places, they're doing it in a straight line instead of going like in a circular pattern or something else. We call that a slot dance. And if you notice, we're going to watch this clip again so you can keep an eye out for these things. When we watch again, notice how the other dancers in the space are also dancing in the same slot formation. So everybody is oriented the same way. They all have their backs to the same two walls, and they're all switching places in the same way. So that's a slot dance. Also, at the end of the clip, I'm going to pause it so you can see that the slot is protected by the leader. So there's a guy who's walking across the dance floor and he's walking into their dance space, and the leader puts his hand out. He doesn't even really look at him, but he can sense him coming and puts his hand out to stop him from walking into their slot so that the follower can do a bunch of spins. Also in this, we see that observers are mixed among the dancers, but for the most part, they're pretty aware of that slot system. Let's see, the dancers focus. In this video, we can see that these dancers are aware that people are watching them. They're aware that there are cameras out filming them. There's even people holding lights up. And so we can see their focus is a little bit performative. There are moments when they're looking down and they're focused internally, but there's a lot of performative focus and some smiles as well. So overall, my movement observation, I'm really curious about how the leader is creating lots of opportunities for the follower to improvise and to express the rhythm in her own way. And there's also moments where the follower creates those opportunities for herself. When we watch again, you might catch a moment where she drops his hand, and he's caught a little bit off guard, but she drops his hand so that she can move the way that she wants to. So looking at that, it seems like maybe the leader-follower roles appear to have equal power in creating the movement. And in an interview, I would want to ask, is that the case? What are the roles like here? Do we both contribute to the dance, or as it appears, or is one person more dominant? And I would also want to ask, I would want to be nosy and ask a little bit more about the relationship between the partners. How do they know each other? How long have they been dancing together? And how do they sort of trust each other to create this movement together? So we're going to watch the video again. Keep an eye out for those things that we've talked about. Look for the slot. Look for other people jumping into the slot. This time I'm going to mute it and kind of just narrate as we go along. Okay, so they switch places. We have some turns. They switch places again using turns. Their arms are kind of intertwining with each other, switching places again, using turns. You can see his hand sometimes goes to his diaphragm, and here they break the rhythm, and then they get back on it together. Switching places, dancing in that straight line in the slot. Breaking the rhythm here, allowing each partner to express a little bit different rhythm at the same time. We see somebody sneaking into the slot next to them. So the dance floor is pretty well organized. Switching places again. Here, breaking the rhythm, allowing both partners to do what they feel like, and then coming back together. We see smiles. They know they're being watched, so this is pretty showy, pretty fancy. Here, again, breaking the rhythm, allowing each other to improvise or freestyle, and then coming back to the slot and coming back to our partner frame. There. So, did you guys see the leader? The male leader used his right hand to block that guy. I'm going to rewind just a hair so you can really catch that moment. Here, can you see? He's protecting the slot. He's protecting his partner, but his eyes are really on the follower. So he's got a lot of sense, of that kinesthetic sense around him. Okay, so these are the 4 different styles we're going to look at. The first one being LA street style. It's called both, depending on where you are. So this style of salsa is generally danced in a slot using that linear pattern. There's a lot of switching places. There's also a lot of spins, and both the leader and the follower express the rhythm. They both have opportunities to freestyle and express their interpretation of the rhythm. And also this style is generally quite showy, quite sexy, a little more performative than some of the other styles we're going to see. I will say this style and a few of the others are influenced by the ballroom world. And that's where we sort of see an influence from that showy, sexy